Hey guys, this is Brian Raul with the Seat Shop. Today we're going to be working on a Ford F-250 XL, the base model bench seat. So it'll work for the F-250 all the way up through the 550 as long as it's got the full bench. The cab configuration really doesn't matter either. Regular cab, extended crew. There's a couple different things on the regular cab versus the crew, but the install is pretty much going to be the same. This rig happened to be cloth. We're going to strip it off and redo it in vinyl. So we're going to dive into it, show you how it's all done.
Yeah, this particular bench came out of a 2008 to 2010 F-250. The older ones do look similar, but you'll notice that this one has a stitch versus an oval that the older ones have. The way they anchor is a little bit different, but the installation process is going to be pretty much the same.
In a couple of the variations you can see, sometimes they'll have a fold-down cup holder in the center armrest deal that'll fold down. This one we've actually carved some of the foam out for the cover that has the fold down, because the covers we're going to put on actually have the fold down armrest piece in it. So we just trimmed some of the foam out. You'll see that when we get that top ripped off. And this one actually has a little cutout in the center, so it goes across here, then it dips in. Second row, if you get second row bench seats, they're pretty much identical. They're just not going to have this little indentation in the center. So if you get a stick shift, they give some room for you to shift here with the 4-foot shifter they have in these trucks. So yeah, without further ado, let's rip the sucker apart. All right. Okay, so there's not too many tools you need really. To pull the seat out of the truck, you're going to need a 18mm socket, and also they usually run some Torx bolts as well. So the size can be a T55, so Torx 55. Typically the front two are going to be Torx, and the rear are going to be some 18mm nuts. So just regular socket wrench to get to those. Impact on the front makes it a whole lot faster. Couple of things, we'll need there's a 15mm on some of these bolts here to get some of the frame off, some hog ring pliers, some needle nose, all basic stuff, screwdrivers, stuff like that. Nothing crazy, but we'll go through all those pieces as we get into it. So,
all right, let's go ahead and start. What we're going to do is to start off, we're going to remove the top and separate it from the bottom. Sometimes you don't have to do this. We're going to do it for demonstration purposes. Again, this one's a pretty basic seat, so you can get away without doing it, but we'll go ahead and do that. And the size we're going to end up using is, I believe they're going to be 13s on the sides.
So the side of it, the material on the side wraps around and velcros on the back of the seat. So this just literally just pulls apart, and then it's going to expose the two bolts on each side. There's going to be two in this bracket, two in that bracket.
All right, so first thing we're going to do is remove this piece of carpet back here. It's just velcroed on. As you can see, two bolts. Before we remove the bolts, we're going to unhook these cables. Now again, this is a regular cab seat, so there might be different cables running to this one versus yours. But if you don't have these, then you don't have to worry about them. Yeah, let me get the...
You need a tooth pry tool.
Yeah. So it comes out, and then Brian will do his side.
There we go. All right, we'll pull that carpet flat back, and here's this. So this just pops out, come from the inside, that'll pop out, and then this little guy will snake through like that. Perfect. So when you're trying to put this back together, see this cable separates right there? It's just too thick when that cable is all the way up against it for it to go through this hole. So if you let some slack out on that cable there, then this piece will slide back in the hole. Let me see if I can get it with the needle nose. So that'll go right in. The hole, heck of a lot easier with that piece out of the way. There we go. And then that's on. So just when you're putting it back together, that's something to look at. So let me pull this guy out again. Dang it. There we go. Okay. Feed the cable back out through the back. Okay. Now we'll pull these two bolts off. Now also on the side of the seat, you're going to have recline levers, the little plastic lever you can pull up so the seat will tilt forward or whatever. So there's a clip that goes on the inside of this that hooks on. The clip's taken off right now. We don't have the clip. I got a little different clip to kind of show you how it works. But there's a little stump here that's geared for this thing to go on. So in the very back of this plastic piece, there's a slit right through here, okay? And so what the clip, this is a different clip, but the factory clip that comes with this is longer, and it doesn't veer out as far on the side, so it's more linear. It goes straight through there. So it'll slide through that slot in the back, come through, and it hooks around right through there, and there's two little slits hooked into it, okay? So you can push that pin all the way through, and it'll lock onto there. And so when you're done, you can just push this back on and lock it back on, okay? It'll self-spring back on. But when you're first taking it off, you're gonna have to kind of come from the back side of here with a little 90-degree pick or something, and be able to catch the back edge of the clip. So if this were the correct clip, and this clip was installed inside the frame like that, you're gonna have to sneak around from the back side and try to hook that clip and pull it back, okay? So you'll pull it back out through that slot, then this will come off. Once you got it off, go ahead and reload your clip back into it where it snaps on in place. So then when you're done with the install, and this the last thing you're gonna do is snap that piece back on, it just pushes back on, locks itself back into place. All right.
All right, so let's start removing. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and remove our 13mm bolts on each side. And it being a bench, it is going to be a little bit easier to do with two people. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's heavy. It's just kind of awkward to carry by yourself.
Okay, I'm free.
Yeah. All right. And then the top just comes right off, and we'll set it aside until we work on it.
There we go. Let's move those. Okay. There's that. All right, now on this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it over on its, so it's with the face down, and we're gonna get to all the plastic J-clips that are hooking it onto the frame. All right. So you can see there's just some plastic clips that run the length around the perimeter. They just simply wrap over and clip onto the frame. We'll take a flathead screwdriver, some pry tool, whatever, to get in and pop those off. Also on the sides where these frames are, the covers come around and clip on there, so it's a whole lot easier to get to those with these frames off. There's holes in the frame so you can run your socket through there, so they actually engineered that so you can get to it.
All right, so we're going to take off these 15mm nuts.
Yep, all right, so we'll take our 15.
And sometimes if you can get them with the impact, that'll work. Sometimes they are pretty snug on there if they've been there for a few years. So
Oh boy, that sucker's on there. Let's see.
you'll need a cheater bar, some wrench. There you go.
Boy, it's on.
Luckily, Brian's been working out.
Yeah. There we go. Okay.
And this front clip just rolls right off. And it is worth noting that before you remove them, just make sure, keep in mind there is a bracket. The bracket that goes across diagonally is usually on the back side of the seat, okay?
So next happens to be welded on. We've seen some of them that aren't welded. So there's a little bracket here that goes across, just kind of spans that just from extra support. Not all these are welded on. This one happens to be. It's one of the first ones I've ever seen actually that is welded on. But if yours isn't and it falls out, this is what it looks like inside that frame. So coming from there to there. Set that aside.
Yeah, the seats had a hard life. These are pretty rusted.
There you go.
All right. There we go. So now that we have the frames removed, you'll notice that there are 10mm bolts to remove the tracks.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind to get to the front ones, you are going to have to move them. So before you start, make note to see where it's actually engaged, and that way, whenever you put them back, they're not all offset.
You can also count the holes in here for the manual bar. So when you pull this bar up or push it down or whatever, you can make sure that they sync back up. Because when you're trying to put it back in the truck, one set of seats, one set of the legs are further not forward, it's a real pain. So just double check you got those before you throw it back in the truck. There we go. Yeah, with that. Get it. Go. This old guy will pick up and move
Out the
away.
way. And the reason we did all that is to be able to, we can get to these clips right here. So I'm going to go ahead and start popping all these clips off.
A flat edge something over there. There we go. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Now, I'm just going to pull the corners down a little bit, and then let's flip this guy over. All right.
And in 2008 to 10, they started using hog rings on these. On the older one, it's going to be Velcroed in. But since it does use hog rings, we're going to have to use a pair of snips and go ahead and cut the old hog rings out.
So hog ring is just basically a big metal staple, pretty much. So there's a bar that's embedded down in the foam cushion, and then there's, on the underneath side of your cover, there's a little listing on there that's got some, kind of fabric on there that sews onto the cover. But then at the end of it's got a hard plastic rail that's built into it. It's kind of crimped onto it. So that big hog ring will joins this rail, this hard plastic rail that's part of the cover, down onto the bar that's embedded in the foam. That's what holds that down to kind of give you your defined stitch pattern. Even though your XL work truck doesn't have any crazy stitch patterns and crazy bolstering and stuff like that, but still, it's either going to be Velcro to hog ring. Ford decided to go to hog rings when they hit 2008 instead of the Velcro. So here we go. Make sure you pull all the old little fragments of the old hog rings you cut off out of the trough in there. You don't want to leave those little fragments in there. So dig in there with your needle nose or fingers or something and get those out. Need those?
I got them.
Okay.
Another thing we are going to have to remove before is plastic that goes in the seat cover itself. You can actually push in. Or maybe not.
Yeah, they're trying to trick it. We can come in through with a, let me see that pry tool. So what these are is there's two plastic bezels, okay, that are on, you can see on the seat top where your seat belts are coming up through the cover, okay? So basically you got a male and a female part. The male part goes through, the female comes in and caps on underneath and clips on. So these are pieces that you're going to need to reuse during your install. So you want to pull these apart. And try not to break them. If it does break, you can snap it back together, put a little super glue or epoxy on it so that it sets up. So you can see here that these got little ridges in it to catch. So we want to kind of get up underneath here and see if we can start loosening it up, popping it off. It can be tricky because you don't want to break them. There we go, a little bit there. Suckers on there. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. So here's that bezel. We'll set that aside here in a second. This is also another thing you'll have to unbolt. Pulling the truck seat out of the truck is your seat belts. Your seat belts are going to be anchored to the floor as well. So they typically are going to overlap one another. These two pieces overlap and bolt in. They may hit side by side. Something like that, where they'll bolt into the floor. Typically, those are going to be your 18 millimeter nuts. So there'll be a welded stump coming up, 18 millimeter nut holds them on.
Some biscuit. There we go.
Perfect. So here's our two pieces. Here's the part that comes from the top down, and here's our bottom part. That's what caps on there and hooks on, okay? So set those aside.
You will be reusing them.
All right, cover the side.
All right, perfect. You go ahead and take time to find any loose change or anything you want to clean out.
Now, usually we'll prep the foam before we put the new cover on there, because typically your foam's going to be pretty hammered, and more than likely on a work truck, the left side's going to be pretty thrashed. So you want to, if you're missing a lot of foam on the left side, or the density's really shot on there, you want to spend some time kind of carving some new foam, adding that into it. If it's really blown up and it's not something that you want to tackle yourself, you can, once you have the seat stripped, if you were to take your foam cushion just by itself into an local upholstery shop, and have them give you a price on repairing that foam, they're going to be very well versed on doing that kind of type of foam repair to build it back up. Because if you slap the new cover, no matter what material it's made out of, if the foam's shot, especially on that left edge, it's not going to hold up, and it's not going to be comfortable either. So steaming the foam out will puff it back up, but typically that left side where it's hammered from getting in and out, you either need to add some new foam onto it or layer some on top of it, depending on what grade of beat to hell it is. So just every truck's going to be different on that. But this one we're not going to steam. We're just going to throw a new cover on it, show you how that whole thing goes. Next tool we're going to need right now is going to be some hog ring pliers and some hog rings.
Yep.
We'll snag the new bottom.
Here's the bottom. Here's some hog ring pliers. And our official seat shop salsa bowl of hog rings.
All right. So throw this guy up here. We're basically just going to line it up based on that hog ring strip. So we're going to fold it back so that hog ring strip's exposed. And you can see in the old foam where the stitch lines were, because there's going to be some indentations. It's going to be colored a little bit different. So we're going to kind of line those up, make sure those seam lines are there. And we're going to line up where this hog ring strip's going to go on. There we go. Right in there. So
whenever you purchase your cover with us, we will include hog rings enough to do the job. If for any reason you do want extra ones, or if you need a quick pair of hog ring pliers, we do carry that as well. Just check out our website. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this hog ringed in.
there's just 3 on this. There's nothing crazy. So the hog ring, basically the hog ring is a big staple. All right, so it's just a big metal staple. You got a set of hog ring pliers. The only thing really special about the hog ring pliers is there's a groove cut in the nose of these guys, so that when you set the hog ring in there, it holds it there. And a nice set of pliers is going to have a spring on it so that it holds it together so it doesn't fall out. Okay, so that way you can get down into the foam to get that clipped on. So whenever you get the hog ring on, you squeeze it. It just basically bends that into a nice triangle, which holds the cover onto the foam. So that's all hog ring is. Give me some more rings. I still have one more to do, sorry. Okay, the last one here. Okay.
Awesome.
So, all right, roll the cover over.
Push the corners in on the foam and roll the cover over the foam.
Okay.
All right.
Now, what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and clip everything. Before we make, we're obviously going to have to make some trim cuts here for the seatbelt pieces to come up through. But we're going to go ahead and flip it over and get all of our hog rings, our J-clips attached and pulled tight, so we know exactly where it's going to be sitting once it's all pulled tight and everything. So it's just on here nice now, but we don't want to make some trim cuts, and as we pull and everything, get it situated and hooked onto the frame, we don't want it to move around and you know, wish we hadn't cut that hole already. So
Yeah, if this is your first time, go ahead and grab something to mark with as well, just so you have kind of a rough estimate of where everything is.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and make just a quick guideline for where our trim cut's gonna go for the seat belts to come through before we get all the clips, you know, wrapped around underneath and hooked on. So here we can kind of lift up here and see where our hole's gonna be for the seat belt stuff to come up through. So I'm just gonna kind of get an idea. Here's put my finger kind of where the top of the hole is. So my finger's on the back side of it on the vinyl face. So I know I'm starting about there. And I'm gonna give myself just kind of a guide. I know I'm gonna be right about in there. And you can you'll be able to feel the void in the foam there, but it's always nice to have a quick little guide on where you're gonna make your cuts.
All right.
All right, now we'll flip the sucker over, start hooking on the clips.
Make sure when you have your new cover on, make sure there's nothing on the table itself. You don't want to tear that new cover up.
Just flip that over and knock just kind of tip it up real quick. Make sure some of those old hog ring fragments aren't laying around there, because you don't want to be sliding around on your table and get the little metal shard. Cut your new cover up. Okay.
The finish on these frames isn't the best, so there are going to be pretty sharp edges. So if you're not comfortable with that, wear gloves, but just keep that in mind whenever you're going to hook things on and clip things on, just because it is going to be a bit difficult to do.
I was like pulling the clip towards me that I'm going to clip, so if I'm clipping the back, I want the front of it towards me and the back away from me, so I can grab here and I can pull. I got some leverage, okay? So I can push down, I can pull, and I can roll that clip over to hook onto the frame. It's a whole lot easier than trying to push it away from you.
Sit there and fight it.
A lot trickier. There we go. Okay. Let's go ahead and, let's go and flip it over. Flip it around. There we go. Okay.
Whenever they're doing the longer front clip, the best way to do it is to start on the ends and work your way towards the middle. Yeah. And this is where it really helps to have two people, just because it does get tricky holding that clip down.
If you need more slack, you can always push in and compress on the foam, and that's going to let it pull forward towards you more if you need some sections that are pretty tight or something. All right, we'll wrap these. You don't want to grab the clip itself and just yank the clip. You want to grab the material around the clip, behind the clip. You want to pull that. It gives you some actual structure, because you don't want to risk ripping that clip off if you put all your pressure just on that clip. Okay. Oh, almost. There we go. Okay, there's our bag. All right, let's flip it over. Okay.
Start doing our cuts.
All right, there we go. Now, flip this around. Perfect. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do, we'll be making some of our trim cuts for the seat belts.
All right, so now that I'm done cutting Brian's hair, we're gonna go ahead and make the cuts on our seats.
So using the same scissors that you cut your hair with, we're gonna go ahead and trim the holes in the seats. Now, remember before we put the little chalk mark to give us a guide where that hole is? So we're gonna always just kind of feel through the frame, make sure you still feel the hole there. It's pretty lined up. We're gonna go through. When you take the scissors, you don't want to try with them open. You don't want to stab in there with them open, because once it punctures through, this thing could slide through, then this part can nick another part of it. So if you're gonna puncture through, close your scissors, put them in there, and then just kind of pop a hole through. Okay, then you can come in and start making some cuts. So I'm gonna just cut a straight kind of line where we had it marked before. So there's gonna be a couple layers thick. You're gonna have the foam underneath plus the vinyl. So.
And just keep in mind, guys, it's easier to cut a little bit more, but you can't add material So start off small and work your way out.
So here's the vinyl underneath. I'm going to start kind of pulling it out a little bit. Once I get this extra foam out of the way, I can kind of look through and make sure I'm really lined up on the hole in the seat, which it looks like I'm good here. Here's the left edge. I can see the yellow foam there. And then this edge, I got some room to go left. I can kind of come pretty close to the seam line. And then we're gonna get our, next thing we'll see how far forward we are. I can come a little bit further forward and a little bit further back. Feels like, yeah, it's in my finger right here. It's kind of where the foam bottoms out. So I can come back a little bit too. But let's get our plastic bezel. Make sure we don't cut something way too big overall. So there we go. So if my back of it's coming to about right there is what it feels like. So with how far forward I've cut, I want to stay there. I can come back, oh, a good inch or so. So let's go here. Okay. Okay, now this is here. I'm going to go ahead and draw a little bit around this bezel. There we go. Okay. So
And keep in mind, guys, when you're cutting, you definitely don't want to cut across any kind of stitching or any kind of seams.
yeah, if anything sew lines, if you cut across, it's going to come unstitched. That looks
Perfect.
pretty good. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's good there. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. You might want scissors. Once we get the second hole cut and the bezel fits in there, then we can go and undo the clip across the back of our cover and go ahead and drop our bezel in there, put our other cap, the caps from underneath side back on, so that's back, so that's all trimmed out and good. Then we'll reclip the J-clips across the back of the cover, back around to the frame again. So. I've had several people over the years that have taken the old cover off, chunked it, and not saved the plastic bezels out of these. There's some other vehicles that have these as well. Typically a lot of second row seats on SUVs, you know, old Tahoe, stuff like that. Excursions have these, where there's for the second row seat, for the seat bottom to fold up, to tumble forward, and then the seat top will lay down flat for storage in the back. There's a little plastic bezel just like these in those seats. I've had customers over the years that have chunked their original covers without robbing that part off there, and then at that point you're just discontinued from the dealer. You can't get them anymore. So then you're digging around salvage yards trying to find another seat you can cut that out of. So
The good
don't
thing
let these
is,
wind up in the dumpster.
yeah, it being a work truck too, if you're not too picky, you can always make it work without it as well. But it does look way better with the bezel actually on there.
Yeah. If you do this with a razor blade, the razor blade can run pretty quick on you, especially if you get a good fresh blade in it. Once once you make your puncture and you start, actually slicing, it can go pretty quick. And if you get going the wrong direction, you can cut it in the wrong way. That's why I like to run scissors on doing internal cuts like this. You can maybe use the razor to just push straight through it to get your starting point, so you can get your scissors in there to cut. But you get a lot more control with scissors doing an internal cut like this, because fresh, sharp blade on a razor blade can get going pretty quick in the wrong direction. You don't want that to happen.
Money.
Yeah, like it? All right, sweet. Let's flip it and then undo the J-clip.
Yep.
Let's go this way with it.
And I'm sure you guys are wondering why we clipped it, cut them, and then are proceeding to unclip it again. Just because you want to have the cover on there exactly the way it's going to be before you cut. If you don't clip it and there's slack, that's not going to exactly line up where it's going to be on the finished product. So that's why we went ahead and went through the trouble of clipping all of it and then cutting and then undoing the clips. Yours.
Okay. So I'm going to tilt this, kind of flip it back over so it's easier to see, just for the camera. We'll go through and drop this down in right there.
On Brian's side, it doesn't have a seatbelt. Yours is probably gonna have a seatbelt. Keep in mind, these are salvage yard seats, so maybe someone already took the seatbelts out of these, but just make sure you run everything that's needed through there first. And then go ahead and flip it around.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's turn it where the front's facing this way, but the vinyl's still up. What we'll do is we'll come up from here and go that way. There you go.
Nice.
Clip. No extra charge for that. Okay, so let's feed this little guy on.
And all we're doing is running that ring through your seatbelt and everything, and then press fitting it in.
Yeah, we're good.
Yep.
This needs to go down through.
Back seat. Pull the seatbelt off.
Yeah.
There he goes.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, now we'll flip it back over. We'll clip all the J-clips again. Easier if it's flipped the other way, but
Yeah, it's all right.
sure. Okay,
All right.
like that. That's
Good.
good.
That's going to be everything for our bottom. So
Yeah,
let's go
flip that
ahead.
over and make sure that's all.
Everything looks good.
All this side pieces you're gonna Velcro when you actually get the top put back on it. So this could go back in the truck. We'd have all the rest of, we'd run these things back through when we put it back in so that those will bolt onto the floor. Those are the other seat belts that go here. And we'd put the, we gotta put the, let's go ahead and throw the seat track and stuff like that on
Okay,
there.
that works.
So let's flip that over.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's our manual frame. This, guys, remember when, oop, there's a frame there.
Brian busting a move.
That's awesome. Let me kick that. All right, these guys went on with 10 millimeter
Other way.
bolts here, right?
And then keep in mind, guys, if you line up on one side and the other side isn't lining up, just make sure you check to see the hole placement on these, because that's what'll happen whenever you move them individually a lot of times.
Yeah. You can count the squares, the rectangle squares there to see how many open slots there are on both sides, so that way you know both tracks are the same forward or back.
You get yours started.
Maybe get it deep enough so that track will slide forward. You may have to get a little deeper than that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, now, just push that guy down. Okay. There are rear bolts. Sweet. All right, I got
Awesome.
one, everything but one on the front.
Okay.
So you can come back a little bit.
There
There
he
we
goes.
go. All right, cool. Now we got these frames.
Yep.
Okay, so on the frames, the part that's forward's always like this. The front frames, that's gonna be closest to the dash is gonna be this part that's on the angle, okay? So that's towards the dash. If that was towards the rear of the truck, it ain't gonna go in. So the back's flat, the front has that down angle, little 45 on it, okay? So here's the front of the seat, the 45 needs to be towards the front. So that's your side. This is this side. That's
Awesome.
okay.
All right.
All right, we'll throw this down. We'll throw the seat top up here and get going
Get
on
started
it.
on it. Got it. You put it back here or probably in front?
I'll probably go in front here. Well, I can lean it up against here. There we go. Okay.
All right, guys, we got our top on our workbench. First thing we're gonna do is remove the bottom clip that's on the underside of it.
There's one long J-clip that runs across the whole frame. It doesn't hook to the frame, it hooks to itself. So you get two clips that just clasp like that. So we'll show you how that works. We're gonna flip this over, it's gonna be a little bit easier to get to. Okay, so here's our long clip running all the way across, and they just literally hook to each other. So you can come in with a flathead screwdriver. This flathead's a little big for what we're doing, but it will still work. There we go. And then start rolling it off. So here's the two clips. You can see how they lock together, okay? So that's it. Just getting there and prying the sucker out of there. So now we get that in clip all the way across, okay? Now we'll start pulling the cover off.
If your seats, like I said, came out of a regular cab. I believe the extended and crew cabs don't have these little holes here just to lean the seat forward. If yours, obviously, if you don't have them, don't make cutouts for them.
Yeah, the cover won't have these holes pre-cut for the recline deal or the seat deal to go forward. So then you obviously wouldn't have to make any trim cuts. But okay.
And what you want to do to get started is actually start flipping it kind of inside out. So once you get each end flipped, it's going to be a lot easier to pull the whole cover off.
Let's probably see if we can stand this straight up. See if you pull your recline lever, your black lever there.
Yeah.
See if we can push this thing flat. No, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see if it would stand up on its own a little bit, but we'll just start pulling this guy
back
inside out. Now the only attachment point is going to be this horizontal seam here, just like the bottom. It's going to be hog ringed on. So when you get to that point, you want to stop. I'm going to lay this down, get our snips, cut those off. And like I said at the beginning of the video, there's two different seat designs for these benches. Some of them have that fold down console armrest rig in the center, little cup holder deal. This frame that we had was obviously one without it, but I made some trim cuts in the foam to be able to put a cover on there that has the fold down armrest. So originally this thing was solid foam all the way through, but the install is gonna be the exact same. Now that console, if you do have the fold down console, there's there's either 2 or 4 screws on the side of each. So you have your console that sits in here, and then it would fold down, okay? About right in here and here, which is kind of their pivot point, there's gonna be 2 screws. They could be Torx, but typically they're big Phillips. You can mash in on the foam and come in through the side with your screwdriver, undo those screws. Once those 2 screws are done on each side, you can pull that off, and it's wide open. So that's how to get that off. There's usually 2 screws on each side, either a smaller Torx or a big Phillips head to get the console thing off.
All right.
All right, a little Velcro. If you happen to, when you're pulling the Velcro off, sometimes that Velcro is attached so freaking hard, it just rips the prickly side of the Velcro off of the foam. If that happens, not a big deal. Grab you a can of spray adhesive, 3M or anything like that, and you can re-glue the Velcro back down to the foam. So that happens quite a bit on stuff that's pretty old and beat down with those things coming off, but you can glue it right back on pretty easy.
All right, guys. So we have a brand new cover. Easiest way to start on the top is going to be turning it actually inside out, and that's what I'm doing right now. Is turning the whole cover inside out. There you go.
We'll leave the head rest parts pushed in like this instead of popping them all the way out. So the whole cover's inside out, but then we push the headrest back in because we're gonna come from the top down, pushing that on to the headrest. So
There you go.
now typically doing this part of it, we would do it on the ground. We'd put the frame on the ground so it's standing straight up. But with 2 of us here doing it, we're gonna see if we can get it to set just by rolling it on this way. We'll get this lined up here. We'll set our Velcro there. And then we're gonna look from underneath side and see if our headrest and everything is lined up, not crooked. This is when it's kind of easier to have it on the ground a lot because you can stand right over top of it
And press down
and see
on
if
it.
it's crooked or sideways or going funky. That all looks pretty
Yeah.
straight on the side.
Okay.
Okay, let's stand it vertically on the table. Okay, and then we're gonna just roll down the sides. Yep.
All right. Guys, this would be a little bit easier to do on the ground. We're just doing it on the table just so you can see how that cover goes on. But if you have it at home, just go ahead and put it on the ground. It'll be a little bit easier to get to. All right, and then once we get to our hoggery strips, we're gonna go ahead and stop.
Oh, dang it, I forgot about the hoggery. I went too far. There we go. All right, we'll lay it back down. Go a little bit further. Let me go down on my side a little bit. There we go. I'm about an inch short, so we're good now.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
All right. So now we're just hoggering.
All right, I'm still.
I'll throw some of those on that side.
Yep. Okay, I got a lot of slack on my top. This stuff here, and that's getting me about an inch and some change short here.
Okay.
So we need to set this down better.
And roll it back up.
Yeah, yeah. Let's roll that back up. Let's flip this up.
And again, guys, this is just part of the upholstery world. I know it's pretty different. If this is your first time doing anything with a seat, it's going to be very different just because, unlike most mechanical pieces in the car, like an engine or suspension, there aren't any torque specs to this. A lot of it's going to be soft hands is what I tell everyone. So as you can see, even Brian's been doing this for years. Every once in a while, he has to go back and redo it just because it doesn't look as good as he'd like it to. That's perfectly normal.
All right, let me see if I get the Velcro on. Okay, I like that a little better.
Yeah.
All right, I'll roll my side down. Okay, let's see how that looks.
All right. Yeah, money.
Yeah, it's quite a bit closer. We'll get that, then once we get it completely rolled down, we'll double check it and see if it needs to go down any further or not. Okay.
Continue to roll it down. Again, guys, if you don't have this armrest, obviously you don't have to worry about tucking this carpet in, but since we made a cutout for this, we're gonna go ahead and tuck all this carpet in. Just a tad bit. Okay.
Okay, yeah. This would all fit a whole lot better when you have if it had the cutout, if it had the frame for that one, but that's looking pretty good there. We'll need to wrap around underneath and get our J-clip to clip on.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's quite a
All right,
bit.
so we're gonna go ahead and flip our seat around and get that J-clip hooked on.
All right, I need to get mine further down because of the, I can't get over the, if I get over the, whatever this thing is, I can't think of the name of what it would be called,
The little post.
gear thing, I need to,
Rebus.
yeah, let me pull this down. Now hooking this channel, especially the bench seats are gonna be all vinyl. So you can heat them up with the heat gun or steam. Heat gun's pretty easy for something like this. You can get a lot more stretch. Makes it a whole lot easier. So if it's really, really tight, you can't get it to clip, start heating your vinyl up.
Make sure you hear that clicking sound. So go ahead and press down on those clips as well.
There we go. Okay. Let's see. If you do have these gears, take you a. Well, this part I would usually do use a razor blade, and I would make a slit just like an X. I'd cut an X there, a line there, and then I'd cut another line like this, so that sucker pokes through, and then your side gear will hook back on for your seat recline or seat adjust deal. So
Awesome. All right. So now
this is pretty much it. Let's look at the front, see if everything's squared away. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. This cut out. Here's one thing I want to show on the backs. Flip this thing over real quick. When you're looking at the seams, I'll show you guys. See right here how we have it where it's rolled, and then you see, now it's flipped, you see carpet, and then you see this roll. Well, you need it to look like this the whole way around. So what it is when these two pieces of material are sewn together, the extra that's on the inside is running on one side, and then now it's rolled over and flipped to this side. So you can pinch this stuff and we can roll our seam. So now the seam's sitting on the same side, okay? So I'll give you an example. If you had, say these two pieces were sewn together, say you ran a seam across here, okay? So this is your extra that's on the underneath side. So when it's installed, half of it was tucked this way, and the other half was rolled and tucked this way, okay? That's what was causing that big deal. So if we pinch this and roll that seam, let's take it, let's go the other way with it. That way. So now the seam's flipped, like if you had a seam run here, the excesses run there, and then the excesses turn this way. Right where that knot part is where this was what it looks like here visually, okay? So when you get everything put on, you can go around all your edges on these type of seams and make sure everything is laying on there right. And to get it to just pinching that material, pulling that seam, and getting it to roll over. So now you get a nice finished look, because it looks like complete if it's rolled like that. And it's a 2-second fix, okay? If you need some extra room to get it to pull, heat up your vinyl. Don't get a heat gun on this carpet, it'll shrink it like that. If I can snap, there we go. It'll shrink it really quick. But you can heat the vinyl up, okay? Just get that sucker to roll. Gives you a whole lot better finish.
if you have a steamer, I would use steam as well. With a steamer,
Yeah.
you're not going to end up roasting that carpet. But if you don't have a steamer, use a hairdryer if you can.
Yeah, hairdryer will get you hot enough too. So
All right, so we're
We'll
going to set our
this
top
down.
down, get our bottom back up, and go ahead and put the two together.
Oop. Perfect. Okay. There's that.
We can probably go ahead and clip these in. And so again, it's going to be exact
These-
reverse. Oh, it's going to
These
go
go on
on
the top. Yeah, they hook onto the top. So then you go and run their top on, which is going to be these. Our 13 mil. This is where it definitely pays to have two people.
Yeah. One person holding the
No,
seat
one,
up.
but man, it is
It's a whip.
not easy. I'm threaded. You threaded?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now we're going to go ahead and hook our cables and stuff up. Make sure the cable is run on the inside of the back of the cover where the cover wraps around and clips onto the frame. You want to make sure that the cable that's running across is inside that housing. Otherwise, it just dangles underneath the seat. So make sure it's tucked inside there. And then we're going to come around here and hook this guy on. So like before when we were taking apart, when this little stump is connected here, it won't go through this hole and make the turn at all. It's really, really difficult. So go ahead and slide this back some, where that's out of the way. And then this guy will go in the hole a whole lot easier. So I'll take some needle nose, keeping this wire out of the way. And that'll go, that'll feed right in there. I had it, hold on. Okay. There we go. And then that will feed back to where it is. So that's hooked there. So this just goes into that notch. Take a little flathead. Perfect. Now we're seated. Okay, so now
All right.
go over to Raul's side and do the same thing. Pretty similar, just a couple little bit different shape clips on there, but same theory.
All right, man. Bear with me. There we go. There we go.
Whenever you're ready, Raul. Put that on there.
Today, Junior. Money.
Got it?
That's it. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Now,
We got to,
make sure your little flaps are folded in. Is essentially that piece of vinyl is there just to make sure you don't see any gaps or anything like that.
and there's some Velcro across the back, so when this carpet pulls around, it'll stretch and hook onto the Velcro. There's that. All right, guys, that wraps up the install on bench seats for the Ford F-250 all the way through 550s pretty much. Like I said, we just did a couple different configurations, some with the holes for the fold down, some without. They're pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Solid bench bottom, solid bench top. Check us out at theseatshop.com or give us a call at 214-710-2565. Thanks.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
That's right.
And again, if you ever have any questions, don't feel free to reach out.